We're on chapter 15, the second miracle. We now know what the first miracle was, so things are a bit clearer. And this chapter is a very intimate one between Miss Honey and Matilda. The previous interactions between them have been with others around, and this time it's this chapter shows a new maybe level of their relationship as they are sat in the classroom. In the previous chapter, we have Miss Trunchbull walking out of the class after having had a rather bad time of her weekly test, having been humiliated over and over again, having lost her composure and her status of power in front of everybody, in front of all the little children that she despises, in fact. And what we have here is, this is the opening passage, which I will read now. Matilda did not join the rush to get out of the classroom. After the other children had all disappeared, she remained at her desk, quiet and thoughtful. She knew she had to tell somebody about what had happened with the glass. She couldn't possibly keep a gigantic secret like that bottled up inside her. What she needed was just one person, one wise and sympathetic grown-up who could help her to understand the meaning of this extraordinary happening. This chapter takes us back to the fact that Matilda is a small child who does not have the right caring family. The truth is that at the end of the day, she still needs someone to share and to be able to get guidance from. She thinks about this incredible thing that has happened to her, this new power that she has. And of course, in this new experience, she realizes that this is truly exceptional, but needs an adult to interface with. So unfortunately, right after this passage, she discusses the fact that she knows that her parents are not those people. Her parents would either dismiss her, not trust her, not believe her, and even if they were to believe her, which I think we can all agree that's unlikely to happen, she knows that they would not be able to give her the guidance and understand the significance of it. And this is where she turns to Miss Honey. Miss Honey being someone who has up till now nurtured her talents and her education and understood what Matilda needs in order to succeed. Now, Matilda feels comfortable asking for help in this situation where she has encountered this mysterious power, which is obviously so confusing. The importance here is in understanding that the author is highlighting educational institutions as an alternative for children who might not have the support and encouragement that would lead them to succeed at home, potentially, but these institutions and the individuals inside them and the adults can have a role in children's life where they are able to encourage and have these children flourish, and if they have gifts, be able to nourish them in order for them to succeed. So that's an alternative to children who have distressed families. And just as Mrs. Phelps earlier in the book was the person who was able to help Matilda at the library. As the conversation between Matilda and Miss Honey continues, Matilda is first explains that she's concerned that she will be expelled from the school, but then goes on to explaining to Miss Honey that she was the one who tipped the glass. But of course, Miss Honey says, I defended you. I know you didn't. I didn't see anyone move. but she insists I tip the glass without touching it. And Miss Honey is obviously baffled and confused about what happens. Matilda is so craving this connection with an adult, and you can imagine that having had interactions with her parents where she was not trusted, it is very brave also, and this is also a demonstration of her keen understanding of human characters, human personalities, that she's chosen Miss Honey to trust. And the way that Miss Honey reacts to Matilda and this claim that she was able to move the glass, to push over the glass, is very much a reflection of Matilda's understanding, because it is so soft and understanding. I'll read the passage now. Miss Honey was silent for a moment. She did not think Matilda was meaning to tell a lie. It was more likely that she was simply allowing her vivid imagination to run away with her. You mean you were sitting where you are now, and you told the glass to topple over, and it did? Something like that, Miss Honey, yes. If you did that, then it is just about the greatest miracle a person has ever performed since the time of Jesus. I did it, Miss Honey. It is extraordinary, thought Miss Honey, how often small children have flights of fancy like this. She decided to put an end to it as gently as possible. Could you do it again? She asked, not unkindly. This is such a very gentle interaction between the two of them. Matilda, having been very much cast aside, called a liar, accused of things she didn't do, and or not believed when she has done fantastic things, such as the math calculation with her father, or having read Nicholas Nickleby just now, previously with Miss Trunchbull. We have a Miss Honey who is also understandably incredulous of Matilda. However, even though she's not really buying it at this point, the way that she goes ahead is very different to the other adults that we've come across before. So she speaks to her gently, she asks her questions various times, and essentially she says, well, let's just sort this out now, and I'll just tell her to do it again. And it says at the end of this passage, she asked not unkindly. So at no point does she brush Matilda off, which basically is reinforcing this idea that within the educational institution, that should be a safe haven for children to explore. And Miss Honey is allowing her to do just that, but also knowing the boundaries. Well, let's just also get this over and done with if it's a lot of rubbish. As it turns out, Matilda does have superpowers and is able to demonstrate to Miss Honey that she can move things with the power of her mind, which is obviously quite impressive and a little bit fictional. But more than anything else, I think the takeaway over here is that Roald Dahl wants us to consider how Miss Honey has handled this situation, and it acts as an example of how all adults should ideally interact with children. And even if the kids may be saying things that are a little, far-fetched and would be potentially sounding like they may be making things up, the notion is that the adults should be the ones to listen carefully and to take their concerns seriously, and also think about how they are going to take the interaction further from there in order not to stifle the children and also ruin a relationship of trust in such an important, for instance, here, in an important education institution. This next passage comes at the very end of the chapter. We've just seen Matilda perform her second miracle, and it describes Matilda going through the transition and of willing the glass to tip over, but she does this immediately, and it is much quicker this time than the last. I'm going to read the quote now. Miss Honey waited, trembling a little herself and watching the child as she slowly stirred herself back into consciousness. And then suddenly, click, went her face into a look of almost seraphic calm. I'm all right, she said and smiled. I'm quite all right, Miss Honey. So don't be alarmed. You seemed so far away, Miss Honey whispered, awestruck. Oh, I was flying past the stars on silver wings, Matilda said. It was wonderful. Miss Honey was still gazing at the child in absolute wonderment, as though she were the creation, the beginning of the world, the first morning. Let's look at just a little bit of vocab here. There's awestruck, so I'm quite sure that many of you have come across the word awesome, and awesome has been turned into a word that is used at every opportunity. This is awesome, it's awesome, as in it's great, and it's a very American expression as well. Now, awestruck takes that awe, which is an overwhelming feeling of wonderment, and awestruck is being struck, hit by this awe, this sense of wonder. And this is very much like you have awe-inspiring as well. So it's that sense of wonder, which is why a lot of people are annoyed about the fact that the word awesome has been used, has become so common. It's just lost its greatness almost. And the other one is seraphic calm. So seraphic is angelic, of pure, like that, like of an angel, and that I think really captures the picture of Matilda here, having experienced the second miracle, and obviously also what she feels after this experience. I like the way that it is described over here. It is significant, this description of the calm that Matilda experiences after performing her second miracle, similar to the calm she felt after the first miracle. So, whereas the first miracle was possibly the satisfaction, as we said, of having gone against the injustices of Miss Trunchbull, over here the calm might also be finally establishing a relationship with an adult that does not dismiss her. She is finally in a position where she is allowed to prove herself to an adult and is not ridiculed, and therefore here this is the cement of the relationship between Miss Honey and Matilda, and Miss Honey is now the person of trust in Matilda's life, where she can feel very much her own self and feel vulnerable with this adult and know that she will be safe. The descriptions of Matilda's miracles, both in terms of what she goes through and how Miss Honey reacts to them. Miss Honey is awestruck, and her reaction is of someone who is watching the world be created for the first time. So this is quite, it's obviously very overwhelming. And we also hear about how Matilda is soaring, is elevated both mentally and almost she feels physically as though she's up in the sky. We get the sensation that the author really wants to elevate this, these extraordinary powers to another level. He calls them miracles. Now, also Miss Honey says, if you did that, then it is just about the greatest miracle a person has ever performed since the time of Jesus, when she's speaking about Matilda's claim of tipping the glass of water with the power of her mind, willing it to. And we have across the book the reference to 3 miracles. There's chapters, there's the first, the second, and the third miracle. Now, in Catholic tradition, you have the notion that in order to become a saint, one had to perform miracles. In fact, it is also believed that they would have to be 3 miracles. And so the descriptions, on top of that, the descriptions of Miss Honey, when Matilda is performing these acts, let us call them, is the references and the wording is very suggestive of the Catholic tradition. So, for instance, she saw the child white in the face, as white as paper, trembling all over, the eyes glazed, staring straight ahead and seeing nothing. The whole face was transfigured, the eyes round and bright, and she was sitting there, speechless, quite beautiful, in a blaze of silence. The wording is very elevated, and Matilda said that using her powers is like reaching the stars or the skies, or the heavens. So despite, we also have to remember that Miss Honey initially was also referred to as a Madonna. And however, the focus remains on Matilda and her miracles. So is the author trying to insinuate that there's something saintly about Matilda? And the answer here is categorically no, because there is nowhere an illusion of the intervention from God. There is nowhere that Matilda is getting this power from anywhere but herself. It is her will, it is her intention to make these changes in the world. And this reverts back to the idea that the fighting injustice and the power that you have lies within. And rather than alluding to perhaps the idea that people pray for change to happen or hope for things to get some kind of cosmic intervention in order for lives to change or situations to change, the writer is clearly saying Matilda is finding this power and this will and this motivation within herself. And that is basically how change and these miracles are happening.